Hello. What would you like to talk about?
My question was, how do we best arm children against indoctrination from Christian school teachers?
Ooh. Last time I was on...
Good job. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. What were you saying?
I was going to say good job hanging up on that other guy.
You know what? To be honest, if I had more time, if we weren't hitting a hard stop at the end of the show, I would love to run it out and try and parse out the pieces. No, it was, I agree. But your question is, how do we arm children against indoctrination? I'll go first, and then you go?
Specifically from Christian school teachers.
Sure. I had Dr. Daryl Ray on the last time I was on Talk Heathen 2 weeks ago, and he was asked that very question, and I liked his answer. It was through education, right? Giving children a robust education in religion where they see that there are other religions and this is what other people believe. Not only will it help socialize that child better and create a more understanding, empathetic person, but it'll also contextualize what they're seeing so they're not going, oh, well, this is the only kind of truth there is.
Right.
I can't think of a time when education isn't the best option. But I know I'm going to toss it over to Thomas. What do you think, man?
Yeah, I would definitely say that I love the saying, if you teach a child one religion, you indoctrinate them. If you teach them multiple, you inoculate them. You know, if they see even just a course in comparative religions and they start seeing how, oh, wow, this religion believed this similar thing, but they also had all these batshit crazy, insane ideas, then it kind of makes them start thinking why theirs is special, why theirs is unique. They see that millions of people can be fooled to believe something else with the exact same reasoning. And so I think if you couple that, not just teaching them other religions, because then you can end up in this weird, spiritual mumbo jumbo. It's all God, it's all real. They're all equally. No, what you need to couple it with is critical thinking, and so that they can go into it and they can see the religion, and then they can also couple it with epistemology and trying to understand how can we know if this is true or not, and break it down using logic and reason. Then you've equipped them with the ability to come to a conclusion on their own and hopefully reach the right decision.
I don't disagree with any of that. I was thinking more along the lines of would it be helpful if there were like targeted commercials or ads on kid shows, for instance.
That would say what?
What their rights were. You know what I mean?
Oh, you're saying not at a how do I keep my child or on a one-by-one basis, but how do we do it at scale?
Yeah. If we could, in essence, shotgun this out to all kids so they would know they're not required to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. They can't be punished for saying Jesus Christ or something like that in school in a, non-prayer format or whatever. So they know that if a teacher tells them you can't say X, Y, or Z, they know they can tell the teacher they don't have to listen to that.
So I would say no. And the reason I would say no is because when I think of children and their rights, they're afforded protections, right? I saw this actually lined out really, really well in a call to Tracy Harris on the Atheist Experience, where she lined out the differences between rights and protections, right? And a protection is something that we give maybe an animal in, an endangered species, right, on a reservation, right? These are protections because we have a stewardship, right? We have an obligation to take care of this thing which cannot take care of itself, right? These are protections that we afford. And when we talk about the very young and the elderly, these are people who either aren't ready or are just incapable of self-advocacy. And so because of that, we're looking at protections. I would say that instead of arming children with their rights when they're unable to fully comprehend what that means, it would be better that we, as stewards of the next generation, as parents, as concerned citizens, that we voice that publicly, right? We should be working at that on a public level and trying to take out, different religious attitudes so that kids can, make up their own minds once they're able to do so. But I would say that arming children is probably not the best, in my opinion.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, then what about commercials for adults, for instance, to maybe encourage them to talk to their kids? I know Christians aren't going to do this, of course, but so that adults can talk to their kids about it and expose them to it.
I think that's fantastic. I know that a very formative time for me that really informed a lot was when I first learned that there were other religions. I remember I was in 6th grade, and I was starting to learn about, Greek and Roman mythology. And that was the first time that I went, oh, holy crap, people believed other things? Multiple gods? That they did what? And that was huge, right? I think that Hollywood is doing a really good job, of doing that, of saying, you know what? Here are other universes where there are other deities. Just trying to broaden that and go, you know what, this isn't the only thing. I see that as much more effective. I think the Marvel Cinematic Universe, right, and Thor, just gives people more tangible, relatable, hey, this is what somebody defined as a god. It's not just, what your teacher said in school or what your parents said.
Well, plus Thor is like super hot too. That doesn't hurt. But no, my experience was actually he is. I'm straight, but Jesus, he's great.
Dude, me too. Even fat Thor.
Yeah. No, I don't care. But my experience was almost identical, but it was in reverse. I was never religious, but I studied mythology. I thought it was really interesting. And then later, when Christianity was proposed, it was just seen as silly because it was no more, reasonable than the mythologies.
Yeah.
I think there's two sides to this. On the one hand, I don't think that we should try to indoctrinate kids ourselves. At the same time, I think that they should be given a neutral learning environment. And when you start seeing public schools where they'll have teachers who are advocating for a particular religion, that's not legal. And that's why the FFRF will hold these schools to task. And there is a great book by Hemant Mehta, I believe it's called The Young Atheist Survival Guide. And it talks about these types of situations where kids will come out and say, I'm an atheist, and they face bullying and discrimination, not just from other students who are religious, but from teachers and from principals. And so in those types of situations, it's good to know that you have somewhere to go to, that you have somewhere to turn to. There's organizations like the Secular Student Alliance, the FFRF does legal cases, American Atheists will equip people with resources. Knowing what tools are available to you, I think, is extremely empowering.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, that's why I mentioned it, because, a student, if they don't know what their rights are, you have to wonder how many cases never really get brought up because kids just don't know they have the right to say no. That was why I was kind of targeting towards it. I'm against all forms of dogma. It doesn't matter what it is. But how do you let the kids know that they have a right to stand up and say, no, I'm not doing that shit?
Well, some of them know that they have the right, and they don't want to face the social blowback and the social suicide that comes with standing up against, literally, you're not just going against the flow, you're going against a tsunami. And that takes a lot of guts for a kid to do. And if you have a court case, the kid's going to be involved. They can't just have some outsider come in. Like, they need the kid to actually be someone who has dealt with the discrimination or dealt with the illegalities that they're up against.
My kids went through the very same kind of things. And so that, and they had the choice. I gave them the choice. I wasn't going to take it to court unless they were okay with it. And they didn't want to face the blowback, and I don't blame them. It's a risk.
But you know what? It's an interesting conversation, and I'm glad that we're having it. Dave, I'm showing in the notes that you're a Satanist, right?
I am, yes.
Rock on, man. For people who don't know, I just would love to ask you to point out the difference. What is the difference between Satanism and atheism?
Well, my version is more of an atheistic Satanism, along the lines of Jains are also not spiritually entwined. The Satanic Temple would be the place to look at for people that don't understand it, if they're unsure of what Satanism means.
As opposed to LaVeyan Satanism or demonology.
He was a bit of a kook, I think. But
from what I understand, and please correct me if this is offensive, but a lot of Satanists are atheists that that really kind of lean into, okay, if these are the rights that are afforded religions, then we want to create a religion to be able to show exactly why it goes too far in the society that we're in. And so they push these court cases and things like that.
Correct, yes.
And that's correct?
Yeah, it's,
okay.
what you hear, and I'm sure you're familiar with these cases where an atheist will bring a case to court and he'll be told, well, atheism is not a religion, therefore you have no standing.
Yep. Where
Satanism is a confirmed religion, therefore they have standing. And that's just the legal aspect of it. Then you have the tenets of the Satanic Temple, which I think are pretty sound. And, of course, the icing on the cake is that it's a huge fuck you to the Christian community. Of course, you can't ignore that fun aspect of it.
Well, honestly, I think that it takes all approaches. And just like this show has an approach to be able to educate and have people see these discussions, I appreciate what y'all are doing, too. I think we're going to move on to the next call.
I think your show's great. Keep it up, guys.
Oh, thank you,
Dave. Dave, just for the record, though, like you and most people, especially in the Satanic Temple, don't actually believe in Satan either.
No. Although we can say we do if we choose to, just to piss people off. But that's just, again, that's just for a lark,
Yeah. Just like people talk about the flying spaghetti monster, but
sure.
Yeah, but your imagery is kind of more metal. So, alrighty, man.
Oh yeah, definitely.